different ways that you can adopt your own money mindset. That's going to include some of the books that I felt were really transformative for me over the past 5 years, as well as some applicational things that you can do in your everyday lives. And you're trying to make that kind of shift from thinking one way to be like, okay, like this is the direction that I'm going in financially, so I need to start kind of building my financial literacy. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you guys, be sure to stick around and check out the rest of the video. That I find to be essential is one, having your finances in order, having them in an easily accessible place. So I happen to keep all of my financial documents in here, and as well as other important information. Like I have dentist related stuff when I go. I have my like little investments tab in here where I track my own investments, like how they're doing throughout the year, and I'll just print that off, put that inside of there. I have some savings information, you know, to my savings account. I used to be like paper budgeting when I used to do that all the time outside of my books. Like I just have my own little folder for that too. It's like different types of budgeting worksheets, from like weekly ones, and then after you've completed that, transitioning into like monthly sheets as well. Just being on top of your stuff and being organized and making sure everything's there, like health insurances and things like that. Like I have Teamster stuff. I have my Aflac folders. Just keeping everything in one central location so that I know that I could easily just run in here, get it out of here. I even have, you know, my own tax little sheet, just because like throughout the year, stuff that comes to me, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna need to give that to my tax accountant so that I'm not running around the house looking for certain things when the time comes. So this particular one, I got this from Target. They have them there, and then the little folders, they have them there, very inexpensive. Like all together, I know it was less than $20 to have the little folders and things. And what I like about these little portfolio type of things is that it comes with the pre-labeled things as well. And then you can also write on, like it has tax saving, like they didn't have budgeting, so I had to write that in. But make sure that you have your finances in order. Start to get organized. That's a big part of it too. Whoever I leave as my beneficiary, I do let them know, which in this case is my sister. So I always tell her like, hey, like this stuff isn't here. Should anything happen to me, look for this, and then you should be able to follow up with everything else. And it's just like, I do need to come up with the actual like cover sheet, like, hey, these are the things that are found within here, and then kind of have it even a little bit more organized than it's currently is. But that is like a game changer too, just having stuff and being like, okay, I'm good to go now. The very first book that I'm going to be talking about is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And in this book, at first I was just like, okay, all right. And then once I got maybe to like the third or so chapter, I'm just like, oh, okay, like this is helping me how to shift my mindset. I truly believe that when you want to level up your finances or start thinking about things differently when it comes to finances, it definitely is a mindset, and you have to adapt that far before you try to implement anything new if you want to be successful. So what I like about this particular book is that it goes over like different reasons why people may fail. It talks about the power of thought and, you know, capitalizing on opportunities. It also talks about the very first starting point of all achievement, which is just, you know, desire. So I have 3 things that I wanted to specifically read from the book that stood out to me. This small excerpt that I think is just like, oh wow, like I really do think that happens to a lot of people. So it says, when the opportunity came, it appeared in different form and from a different direction than Barnes had expected. This is one of the tricks of opportunities. It has a sly habit of slipping in by the back door and often comes disguised in the form of misfortune or temporary defeat. Perhaps this is why so many fail to recognize opportunity. And I do think that when we are starting to change and things aren't going according to our plan, we're just like, dang, like maybe I'm not supposed to do this, because in my head I had envisioned this A, B, C, D, and now like I got to A, and then when it came to B, like that didn't happen, so therefore how am I going to get to C? But this is why we have to change our mind and our way of thinking, and just have an end goal when it comes to financially leveling up, adapting a new mindset, shifting over, is because the goal is what's at the end. It's not necessarily the path that you take to get there. And some people get so fixated on doing things their way that they miss the opportunity to reach the goal at the end. Don't have to do it this way. So don't be so fixated on the process that it takes to get you there, but more so the fact that you arrive to the destination that you've set for yourself. Another thing within the book here that I wanted to touch on was just, it talks about desires. Once you desire something and your mindset is like focused on that, you'll start acting, you'll start moving a different way, you'll start researching things, different opportunities will start coming to you if you're operating from a place of desire. So it really does start there. And then from desire, you know, it eventually turns into application of the knowledge that you've learned through this process. But the last thing that I want to touch on in regards to this book, it says the 30 major causes of failure. How many of these are holding you back? So unfavorable hereditary background, lack of well-defined purpose in life, lack of ambition to aim above mediocrity, insufficient education, lack of self-discipline, ill health, unfavorable environmental influences during childhood, procrastination, lack of persistence, negative personality, lack of controlled sexual urge, uncontrolled desire for something for nothing, lack of well-defined power of decision, one or more of the 6 basic fears, wrong selection of a mate in marriage, overcaution, wrong selection of associates in business, superstition and prejudice, wrong selection of a vocation, lack of concentration of effort, the habit of indiscriminate spending, lack of enthusiasm, intolerance, intemperance, inability to cooperate with others, possession of power not acquired through self-effort, intentional dishonesty, egotism and vanity, guessing instead of thinking, and lack of capital. So those are the 30 reasons that he pinpointed as to why people fail. And each within that specific chapter, it goes over each one of those a little bit more in depth. But if you have not read this book, this is something that I suggest that you do. Regardless of where you're at in your journey, it does bring a lot of things to realization. You'd be like, oh, like maybe that's a little bit of me there. And maybe that's why, you know, I've been a little stagnant and I haven't been able to kind of propel myself or move to that next level. The next book that I want to speak about with you guys is Dave Ramsey's The Total Money Makeover. So I'm just going to briefly describe this book. I do have an actual longer overview of this book. I'll link that video up above. But I started to listen to this book and it just really like got me thinking about where I was financially, what action plan I was going to take to get out of student debt, and then the small credit card debt that I had at that time, and then like me paying off my car. There were some other things. I really started to list out all the debt that I had. So I list everything down on a sheet of paper and I said, okay, I'm going to start the baby steps. I've listed my debt, and this goes over the 7 baby steps. If you guys are unfamiliar with that, be sure to check that out. It gives you 7 steps to how to get out of debt, and then of course going towards financial freedom. That's the end goal. And hopefully eventually, like if you follow these steps and implement good financial practices, that one day too you should be a millionaire. I listened to this book and I was just like, I needed to get my life together. I needed to put more action behind the actual plans that I was coming up with. So I'm still on my debt-free journey. I really do think that this is a great book. most of the time out of the year, like he has a sale and this book is $10. As I said, I listened to it on Audible. This is probably the one book that I would advise that people either listen to or read if you are new in your financial journey. And then this later transitions into financial peace. I've not done financial peace. I do have the book here. This is like more so like a couples thing that talks about marriages. It says singles too, but kids and family. So that's a very helpful. I consider this book to be like an extension of that book. Also, while you're reading the book, one thing I will say is that while you're reading this, listen to his podcast. I really think that for me was just like, oh wow, like there's so many people out there with like different stories. And yes, while he does have like a standard to certain things, does understand that obviously everybody is in different financial situations. So he just gives real life advice. Like they call in, they tell him what's up, where they're at in their financial journey, and what's next step to take. Now he is brutally honest about a lot of things. He'll be like, oh, you're being lazy, or like you're doing Dave-ish. You don't want to do this, so don't ask me these type of questions because you're obviously on the other side of the fence. However, I do think out of all the hundreds and thousands of people that call in, it is inspirational, and especially when you hear these people like do their debt-free screens. Or I follow him on Instagram as well, so I'll see people like, oh, I paid off $45,000 in debt in the last 8 months. And it's just like, don't compare yourself to the next person. That's another reason why I always say on this channel, like, take the time to enjoy your own journey. I really do believe that there is beauty found in your own journey, and it makes you more grateful once you reach the end, because you know and have appreciated everything that you've come through, and hopefully that will kind of divert you from going back and making some of those mistakes, because you were able to embrace that as you were going through that specific journey. So yes, definitely Total Money Makeover. And if you've already read that, you might want to check out Financial Peace. I think it's like a follow-up. And we also have the 21-day financial fast. With this particular book, like it really opened my eyes to just like bad spending habits and thinking about things like outside of debt, like as far as like having your finances in order, your own retirement, what that looks like. When it first came up in the book, I'm not gonna lie, like I was slightly overwhelmed. I was just like, I don't have like any of this stuff in place. Like I don't have a wheel, I don't have my assets aligned. Like 21-day financial fast, it gives you an outline of what you can and can't do within that 21-day period. And I think it made me very much so very resourceful about taking advantage of some of those freer options that we have out there that is still like relaxing, and you can still catch a show, like looking in the I don't want to say the newspaper, but looking online or seeing something that's like a free event to go to, checking like a city's specific website. They have listed free events like Day in the Park and other little things like that. Another thing that this book brought to my attention is not being like so prideful in certain areas. Like she mentions this one lady who was in not the best financial situation, and she owned her own place. She had a spare bedroom, trying to get ahead financially, but just based off of her income, like that wasn't happening. Like she was slowly drowning in debt. So one of the suggestions came up that she should rent out that place for a certain amount of time. And like to her, she took it like as an insult. Like, I'm this grown adult, I don't need anyone to come in and help me with my bills. I'll figure it out, I'll manage. Eventually she ended up getting a roommate. I don't know the duration of time, it says it in the book, but she ends up getting a roommate, and then she comes across the lady who had suggested it. She pulls her aside and basically she just thanks her, like, thank you for making that suggestion and kind of opened my mind up to something, even though at first I was a little hesitant and unwilling to do so. Like it really did help me get ahead financially, and now I'm able to do these things that I wanted to without having to worry about or finagle slash maneuver or finesse certain things to get this outcome. Like, I have money saved, I have this taken care of, so just like gratitude. And I think a lot of times certain things can be done and there is an outlet for us, but we're just too prideful. Like, maybe you really just can't afford that house, so maybe you do need to move in with your family, and pride gets in the way. Like, nah, I'm not moving back home with my mom. Like, I have a child, I'm not doing it. But realistically, you know, if you probably moved back home with someone for a duration of 6 months, it might set you up in a better situation afterwards, because you can save X amount of dollars, and then the next time that you move out, you'll be better prepared, and you'll have like an emergency funds and additional funds set over to the side that you're really not able to do when you're on your own, paying all the utilities, paying all the bills, and anything else that comes up. So a great read, 21 Day Financial Fast. The first week or so was a little challenging for me, but if you want to look into that, I'll just link that up above too, where I go through how that went for me and a little bit more in depth about the book. The last thing that I want to talk about with you guys is giving yourself grace. So your financial situation did not happen in one day. Therefore, it's not going to go away in one day or in a week or in a month. So you have to unlearn certain practices. But to unlearn certain practices, you have to have new practices to put in place of those so that you can implement those. Keep in mind too, like, yes, you may be trying to implement new practices or adopt a new way of thinking. However, your brain is so used to the old way of thinking that those old habits are gonna take precedence over these new habits. Like, you have to force yourself to start doing things differently. Like, it's not just gonna happen. And then you might notice, like, you might be on track for like a month and a half, and then out of nowhere you're just like, dang, like, I really just messed up, and for no reason. Like, it's not that it's not a reason that you messed up, it's just that you're still not used to that. So give yourself grace to learn, to unlearn, and then to implement these new habits. It's a journey, it's a process. It's one that you should try to enjoy every step of the way, regardless of how uncomfortable it may make you. But I just want to take this time to say that I wish you the best along your journey, and that it's okay that it may take you 3 years to learn something that took somebody something a year and a half. It's just the way that life works. Don't let that discourage you. I want to thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to watch my video. I hope that the things that I discussed within this video were beneficial to you. I'm a big proponent of education and learning. So with that comes, I think, a certain duty for me to share things with other people that might help them along their own journey. Some of the things that I wish that I knew a little bit earlier, which then in turn may help you skip a step or have a step shortened because you know information that wasn't available to me along my journey. That being said, take time to enjoy your own journey. It's definitely a process. It takes time. Some mistakes have to be learned through trial and error, and then certain things can be bypassed by just having the knowledge available to you. But I wish you guys the best, and I'll catch you in the comments into the next video. Bye.